What is up, Squared Nation? Welcome back to No Counters, No Combos, and today we're coming at you from the Mobile Command Center on this beautiful spring day here on the East Coast. Finally getting some consistent weather, which is nice. Today, normally we'd go over some tech, but I don't really have anything that I've been experimenting with because I've literally been making bad decks on purpose for this month, so I don't really have any juicy tech options. So today's going to be more of like a PSA slash what you guys think, like what your opinions is as a community. I kind of want to talk about Sensu-Bean. Now, Sensu-Bean is one of the oldest cards in the game. It came out in Galactic Battle. It's probably the most utilized card or the most overused card in the game, and it will probably remain that way unless it ever gets hit or banned or whatever the case is. But I think it's the best card in the entire game, and here's why. Not only does it see a lot of play in your blue strategies, but if you're splashing blue as a secondary color in any type of main deck strategy, you can of course include some number of Sensu-Bean. Sensu-Bean is really good defensively, giving you an extra 5k power permanently for the turn and untapping an energy for defensive purposes, but it's also really good offensively, being able to extend your plays by recycling that energy or allowing you to reuse it for another play. So it's very versatile on both sides of the board, which is what makes it so playable, right? The fact that you can use it defensively, offensively, however you look at it, it's just a really good card. So the reason I wanted to talk about it today is because there's a certain someone, and I'm not going to mention any names, you know who you are. There's a certain someone in my play group that swears that 3 Sensu-Beans or the Sensu-Bean special is the way to go for this new upcoming Set 13 Blue Gohan deck. And as much as I love this guy, you couldn't be more wrong. If we're just looking at Set 13 Gohan, in that deck alone, I feel like 4 beans is mandatory. And if you're not playing 4 beans, you're not good. To quote somebody in the community. It just doesn't make sense to me that a deck or a leader that has good energy manipulation, being able to bounce stuff back to your hand and recharge, something in active mode, it doesn't seem beneficial to not maximize out on Sensu-Beans, because you'll be able to go ahead and untap that energy and further your strategy. So essentially, a leader like Set 13 Gohan, if you're playing it correctly, you're never gonna be tapped out, because the leader skill allows you to replace the energy in active mode, and that could be the last action that you make for your turn, just putting the energy back up in active so you can have it open for defense. Not to mention, if you have Sparking open with Dimension Magic, you can just go ahead and free negate and untap 2 energy anyway. So in a strategy like that, where you're constantly having energy manipulation, I feel like 4 beans is the way to go. So aside from that, though, like if you're just playing a generic blue strategy, I feel like Sensu-Bean is one of those cards where if you're going to play it, you play it at 4 or you don't play it at all. I know that's probably not a popular opinion, and believe me, if you guys want to open this up for discussion in the comments down below, I'd be more than happy to hear everybody's opinion. But I'm from the old school thought that Sensu-Bean is one of those cards that you include 4 of. You don't play 3 super combos in a deck. Why would you play 3 Sensu-Beans? That's just my opinion. I feel like Sensu-Bean just gives you, I don't want to say a crutch, but it gives you something to lean on in case things were to go sour. And it's one of the more versatile cards because, like I said earlier in the video, you could use it both offensively and defensively. Now, if we're looking at the history of the game, Sensu-Bean first came out in Galactic Battle. It was reprinted in the first anniversary box that we got with an alternate art. It was reprinted again in the Magnificent Collection with the Gogeta leader. And it's been reprinted now again in Battle Evolution Booster that just came out with a full art foil. So it's the most reprinted card in the game for a reason. It's very good card. People want to get their hands on it. I mean, it's for newer players who haven't been around that long or are just getting into the game now. They have the ability to pick up Senzu Beans in Battle Evolution Booster. And for those of us who've been playing forever, multiple playsets of Senzu Bean is never really a bad thing, because if you're playing mono blue, obviously it's a 4 of. If you're splashing some type of blue color, it's easy to include it in the deck, and it's just less of a hassle if you have to keep switching beans in and out of certain sleeves or whatnot. But the other thing when you're looking at Senzu Bean is Dragon Ball right now is a very kind of go wide format. Like, a lot of decks are going wide, and if you're able to go wide in blue, you can go wide and tall at the same time. So, for example, I'll use Set 13 Blue Gohan as an example. He's pretty much pooping out 20k vanillas, at will, so to speak, and then you have that big boss monster. But with the leader skill in combination with the ability to swarm the field with 2-drop 20ks, you can give your 20k an extra 5 for the turn, making it a 25, which has always been the sweet spot, when comboing up to attack power, right? 25k has always been that number that you kind of want to get to as your baseline, to where you can start calculating how many cards your opponent is going to use to either combo out, or they're going to go ahead and take that damage. The other thing is, if you're going wide on 15ks, it's a lot easier for your opponent to combo out of a 15k swing with nothing on it. If you throw a bean on it, not only are you getting an extra 5k power, making your opponent use 2 cards if they're 5ks, you're also getting an energy back. So in the example of Set 13 Gohan, one of the 4 drops in that deck, or one of the 3 drops in that deck, it's the 15k, I forget his name off the top of my head, but he's base Gohan, he's a 15k blocker, and he comes in for 1 energy if you control a skill list, and he bottom deck something that's 3 or less, ignoring barrier or something like that. That's a really good card. You're talking about a 1-drop 15k that has a blocker skill, but you can use him offensively if you really want to. And giving him that extra 5 off of the bean is going to allow him to put pressure. Now, obviously, if you're going wide and you're not really able to put big bodies out on the board, you need to combo efficiently. Senzu Bean is one of those things where you're not really using a combo card, you're using an extra card, so it immediately goes to the drop area once you activate it, giving you another energy for a follow-up play. Now, defensively speaking, if you're playing a strategy that has a lot of blockers or whatever the case may be, if you want to protect one of your battle cards and you want to save it with that bean, even a leader, when you bean your leader, it makes it that much more difficult for your opponent to push not only efficiently, but to push successfully, because now it's an extra base value that they have to, go up against when going into the combo phase. Now, obviously, your baseline for most leaders is going to be 15k, so if your leader's attacking into your opponent's leader and he's base 20 with a bean, now that's when you have to start making the calculation of, is this the right time for me to push, or is this one of those instances where I'm just going to have to fight for board and control my resources? I think those are some of the undertones that, that they get overlooked a lot in the game of Dragon Ball Super. Yeah, it's very fast-paced, it's very fun, but you draw a lot of cards, and the name of the game, really, in my opinion, is the resource battle. If you're able to out-resource your opponent and maintain, advantage both economically in hand and on board, you're going to set yourself up for a better position to win in the endgame. So blue specifically is one of those colors that you have to be very wary about, because if you try to make that late game push and your opponent just slaps a whole bunch of beans on their leader, now you have to start thinking, okay, I'm just going to stop here and let my opponent go. But you have to also remember that the more turns you give blue, the better they're going to get in the end game. So I think Senzu Bean, especially when playing a mono blue strategy, which is going to focus on more of a mid-range to late game strategy, I think Senzu Bean is an auto include at 4, simply because at worst it's going to get you there, right? Most decks are getting to turn 3, turn 4, and that's when they have their big nutty turns. Blue has always been a pretty good defensive color. It's always been a really good color when it comes to ramping and energy manipulation. So if you can cheat the system, if you can play the late game earlier, you're going to put yourself in a better spot. Now, yes, Sensu Bean does not technically ramp energy, but it allows you to recycle already used energy. There are different combinations of cards you can play with. Zeno Cosmic Unison gets you an extra energy for the turn. Yeah, you do lose it at the end of the turn, but for that turn, technically, you are up on an energy. For those of you who have been playing with the SS4 Vegeta leader, he's another one. If he's able to get damage in, he's able to ramp and get bigger energy totals earlier in the game. So blue, to me, just feels like one of those colors that naturally wants to go a longer game because they're going to out-resource you at some point. If you're looking at the most expensive blue cards, obviously defensively you have Heroic Prospect, which is a phenomenal card. Even the reprint now is collecting insane numbers as far as financial value is concerned, but it's one of those necessary evils. There are a lot of floodgates in the game of Dragon Ball Super, and Heroic Prospect is just one of those cards that gives blue that survivability to continue their strategy forward to the later turns. If you're looking at Unisons, Baby Unison is incredibly strong. Yeah, you're paying 3 to play him, but he's immediately going to come in, get 2 more markers, and draw you a card. So he's going to be at 5, which is incredibly difficult for your opponent to deal with unless they have just like a whole bunch of double strikers and you can't protect it at all. But don't forget his -5, allowing you to play your counterplay or counter Golden Grade 8 baby for free by pitching 2 cards. Not only that, you get to give your leader an extra 10k and give it double strike. So that Unison does so many things for you because defensively, it's going to give you an out to either a play or a counter. And offensively, it's going to make your leader a win con. Combo that with Sensu Bean and just recycling energy so that you're not tapped out, or being able to restand energy that you've already used so that you can use it again. It just makes sense naturally for it to be an automatic 4 of in every deck. And like I said earlier in the video, you're playing 4 super combos. You would never run across a person who's playing less than 4 super combos. Why wouldn't you play 4 Sensu Beans? It's just one of those things where I think it's the epitome of a staple, especially when you're playing some type of blue variant. But again, it is just my opinion. I just kind of wanted to get my thoughts out there behind it. I know, it's not like an exciting topic to talk about, but, when you start delving into the deck building process, it's a lot more difficult to just say you're going to make a deck with 50 cards. I've seen a lot of lists experiment with like 51, 52 cards, and these are some of the questions that come up in conversation. If you're trying to keep your deck as minimal as possible so that you can increase the consistency, is Sensu Bean one of those cards that's worth cutting down from 4 to 3? It's just an interesting, question to ask, really, for all of those, for those of you, in the community who are blue players. I don't really consider myself a blue player. I have played blue, but I don't consider myself a blue player. But for those of you who play blue religiously, day in and day out, what's your thought? Is Sensu Bean one of those automatic 4 ofs that you include in every single blue deck that you build? Or is it one of those cards where you're like, you know what, I can get away with playing 3 Sensu Beans. I can get away with cutting a bean for another card that's going to help me in the long run. I know. If you're asking Trey Faircloth, I know he's always going to tell you 4 no matter what, but that's his opinion. I know he's obviously played blue for such a long time, and Sensu Bean's probably his favorite card in the entire game. But I wanted to get other people's opinions. Those of you who predominantly play blue, what is your thought behind it? Is Sensu Bean one of those cards now, it being such an iconic staple in the game, having such a long life, and probably being one of, if not the oldest card ever released in the game, 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years ago now? Is it worth having that conversation? Do I cut a bean for X, Y, and Z? I don't know. In my opinion, if I'm playing blue, I'm going to jam 4 Sensu Beans in no matter what. I have never personally come across a situation where Sensu Bean has been a dead card in my hand, or I haven't been able to utilize it. And again, worst case scenario, if I'm that type of guy who, I'm not going to be able to use the Sensu Bean effectively, I can always just charge it, right? Because at the end of the day, you can charge it and give yourself another blue energy source. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let's open this up for discussion. We haven't done a discussion in a while about cards and stuff like that. So I definitely want to hear what you guys think, especially those blue players out there in the community who that's their primary color. What is your thought? Is it 4 bean all the time, or is there an argument to make for 3 bean? Like I said, let me know down below. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Please hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with everything No Counters, No Combos. We really do appreciate the support, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Be there or be squared.